Let me tell you something that might shock you. The difference between a life stuck in endless procrastination and a life exploding with unstoppable momentum can be measured in 2 minutes. Yes, just 2 minutes. Not 2 hours, not 2 years, not some magical breakthrough moment that you wait your whole life for. 2 minutes. And I don't mean 2 minutes of doom scrolling, 2 minutes of excuses, or 2 minutes of hesitation. I mean 2 minutes of raw, focused, committed action. That tiny sliver of time is all it takes to break the chains of laziness and unleash the kind of force inside you that can change everything. Because here's the truth. Your brain doesn't care about how big the task is. It only cares about whether you start. And the moment you start, resistance dies. Momentum awakens. Identity shifts. And suddenly, you're no longer the person who might do it one day. You are the person who does. That is the raw power of the 2-minute rule. And once you embrace it, your life will never be the same again. High voltage, and before I take you deeper, pause for a second. If you're already feeling this fire, smash that subscribe button, share this message, and drop a comment saying I start today. Because this video is about to flip your mindset upside down. The 2-minute rule sounds so simple that most people ignore it. But simplicity is often the birthplace of the most powerful truths. The rule says, if something takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Answer that email. Wash that dish. Pay that bill. Write that one sentence. But there's a second layer, and this is where the magic lives. If you want to build a new habit, scale it down so small that it can be done in 2 minutes or less. Want to exercise? Start with putting on your shoes. Want to read? Open the book and read 1 page. Want to meditate? Sit down, close your eyes, and breathe once. The beauty isn't in the size of the action. It's in the fact that you broke inertia. Because the enemy isn't the work. The enemy is never the work. The enemy is resistance. And resistance cannot survive when you move for just 2 minutes. Think about how many dreams have died because someone couldn't get past the first step. They weren't defeated by the marathon. They were defeated by the shoelaces. They weren't crushed by the novel. They were crushed by the first sentence. They didn't lose because they weren't capable. They lost because they never started. The 2-minute rule is a weapon against that invisible enemy. It lowers the bar so far that failure becomes impossible. You can't fail to write a sentence. You can't fail to floss 1 tooth. You can't fail to do 1 push-up. And once you do that one thing, something changes inside you. You begin to feel different. You begin to see yourself not as someone who avoids, but as someone who acts. And identity, my friend, is everything. Because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And habits are born in 2-minute decisions. The reason this rule works so powerfully is because it destroys the myth that motivation comes first. We've been lied to. We've been told that one day we'll feel like it. That one morning, the sun will rise, the music will swell, and we'll suddenly be ready to tackle our dreams. That's garbage. Motivation doesn't come before action. Motivation comes from action. You don't feel motivated to run until you started running. You don't feel inspired to write until your fingers hit the keys. You don't feel disciplined until you've proven it with your actions. The 2-minute rule flips the script. It says stop waiting to feel good before you move. Move, and then you'll feel good. Start, and then the energy comes. Act, and then the identity forms. That's why 2 minutes is not small, it's massive. It's the gateway to the life you've been putting off. But let me hit you with a truth bomb. 2 minutes is not the finish line, it's the launch pad. When you start, you trick your brain into bypassing resistance. You told yourself you just floss 1 tooth, but you end up flossing them all. You told yourself you just open your notebook, but suddenly you've been writing for half an hour. You told yourself you just lace up your sneakers, but before you know it, you're halfway through a workout. The 2-minute rule isn't about staying small, it's about starting small. It's not the whole game, it's the kickoff. And once the kickoff happens, momentum takes over. You don't need to force discipline anymore, because the hardest part is behind you. The start is the battle, and the 2-minute rule guarantees you win it every single time. Here's the brilliance of the 2-minute rule. It removes the weight of perfection. Too many people are paralyzed because they think they need to do things perfectly or not at all. They tell themselves, if I can't work out for an hour, why bother? Or if I can't write 10 pages, what's the point? That mindset kills dreams. The 2-minute rule slaps that perfectionism in the face and says, forget perfection. Just start. Because the truth is, consistency beats intensity. 1 minute of action every day builds more strength than 1 hour of effort once a month. That's the real compounding power of life. Imagine a drop of water falling on stone every single day. One drop is nothing, but years later, that stone is carved. That's what the 2-minute rule does. It carves your future by creating unstoppable consistency. And consistency is the oxygen of achievement. Now, let me take this deeper. Every single time you use the 2-minute rule, you're not just building habits. You're building trust with yourself. That's the secret layer nobody talks about. Because when you constantly break promises to yourself, when you say you'll start tomorrow but don't, when you say you'll wake up early but hit snooze, when you say you'll take action but scroll instead, you erode your self-trust. And without self-trust, you can't build discipline, confidence, or belief. But when you start with 2 minutes, you win. You keep the promise. You prove to yourself that you can act. And slowly, brick by brick, you rebuild the trust you lost. And once that trust returns, you become unstoppable. Because now you don't doubt your own word. You know that when you say, I'll do it, you mean it. Think about identity for a moment. Who you believe you are shapes what you do. If you see yourself as lazy, you act lazy. If you see yourself as weak, you act weak. If you see yourself as a procrastinator, you live like one. The 2-minute rule hacks your identity. When you consistently act, even in small doses, you start to shift how you see yourself. You stop saying, I'm lazy, and you start saying, I'm a person who takes action. You stop saying, I can't focus, and you start saying, I'm the kind of person who reads daily. Identity change doesn't come from affirmations. It comes from proof. And every 2 minutes is a piece of proof. Every 2 minutes is evidence. And evidence stacks. Soon, your identity shifts not because you wished for it, but because you earned it through action. Here's the thing. Greatness isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in invisible repetitions that nobody claps for. The athlete who dominates on stage isn't great because of the trophy moment. They're great because of the thousands of 2-minute starts in the gym. The writer who publishes a book isn't brilliant because of one final draft. They're brilliant because of the thousands of 2-minute writing sessions stacked over time. The leader who commands respect isn't powerful because of one speech. They're powerful because of the daily 2-minute choices to study, reflect, and grow. Success is never a single explosion. It's a series of sparks. And the 2-minute rule guarantees that your sparks never stop. But let me destroy the biggest excuse people have. I don't have time. That's the most common lie people tell themselves. They say they don't have an hour to exercise, so they skip it entirely. They say they don't have time to read, so they never open a book. They say they don't have time to meditate, so they stay stressed. The 2-minute rule exposes that lie. Because everyone has 2 minutes. 2 minutes while the coffee brews. 2 minutes while waiting for a meeting to start. 2 minutes before bed. Time is not the problem, commitment is. And once you accept that, you realize you've been carrying more power than you ever admitted. You don't need time. You need 2 minutes and a decision. The real battlefield is in your mind. That voice in your head tells you, it's too hard. It's too late. You're not ready. You'll fail anyway. And when you believe that voice, you freeze. But the 2-minute rule doesn't give that voice a chance. Because while it's whispering, you're already moving. While it's giving excuses, you've already started. And once you start, the voice grows weaker. You've probably noticed this before. The hardest part of going to the gym is tying your shoes, not lifting the weights. The hardest part of studying is opening the book, not reading the words. The hardest part of writing is opening the document, not typing the sentences. The 2-minute rule silences the battlefield. It shifts the fight from mental to physical. And once you're in motion, momentum becomes your ally. Momentum is one of the most underrated forces in human life. A stationary train takes enormous energy to move, But once it's rolling, even a small push keeps it going. That's how your habits work. That's how your discipline works. And the 2-minute rule is the push that starts the train. Once the wheels turn, you no longer need massive willpower. You just need to stay in motion. That's why the first 2 minutes of your day matter so much. How you spend them sets the tone for everything that follows. If you waste them, you drift. If you seize them, you lead. That's why successful people guard their mornings and start strong. Because they know momentum isn't random. It's built. And the 2-minute rule is how you build it daily, relentlessly, without fail. The truth is we overestimate intensity and underestimate consistency. Anyone can grind for one day, but very few can show up every day. And that's why most people fail. They burn hot for a week and then disappear. But the 2-minute rule creates consistency that doesn't break. Because no matter how tired, no matter how busy, no matter how discouraged, you can still give 2 minutes. And when you give 2 minutes, you keep the chain alive. And when the chain stays alive, the fire grows. That's the hidden genius. The 2-minute rule makes discipline sustainable. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about never stopping. And if you never stop, you cannot lose. Now, here's a vision I want you to hold. Imagine a year from now. Imagine you started today with just 2 minutes. 2 minutes of exercise, 2 minutes of journaling, 2 minutes of reading. That's it. Doesn't sound like much, right? But imagine the compound effect. 2 minutes becomes 10, 10 becomes 30, 30 becomes a habit, and a habit becomes a lifestyle. A year from now, you're fitter, sharper, calmer, and more confident. Not because you did something extraordinary, but because you did something ordinary with extraordinary consistency.